All right, hey. So I have been working on some 3D printing projects. I have an event coming up that I needed to print some goggles for, just kind of a steampunk thing that I'm going to wear on a hat that I'm wearing. I was asked sort of by the organization, hey, do you have anything steampunk or goth? And I was like, yeah, I probably have some goggles laying around. So I printed a couple of these guys, and I found this design that is pretty cool. It uses 52 millimeter photo lenses, photo filters that just screw right into the top of this thing, and so you have a cool sort of steampunk goggle. That's one half of them. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to print this in sort of shiny bronze silk PLA and see how that turns out. And actually, this looks really nice. I love the shine on this product. Let's see if I can get a nice inside view there. Yeah, see, look at that way the inside, this way, there we go. Look at the way the inside of that is just, it's a nice texture. Um, But what I thought would be cooler than this was if this was multiple colors. So, for instance, the photo filters that screw into this are black. And so I thought, okay, you know, it'd be really nice is if this inner circle was black, leaving sort of this outer hardware, sort of this bronze, you know, metallic stuff, as if it were intentional, right? And so the problem I was running into is that this is a circular shape. And in order to sort of split models into multiple colors, you either need to have those parts as separate models. This was not, this was a single model. Or you have to use what's called a support blocker in Cura. And what that effectively is just a blob that you drop into your Cura project and uses effectively like masking tape when you're painting, right? It's a mask that says, okay, hey, you're this color. Everything that's touching this blob that I put in is going to be this color, and everything that isn't touching this is going to be the other color, one extruder or the other on the printer. The issue I was running into there is that in Cura, the only type of what's called support blocker that you can use is a cube. You can't use any other shape. There's just the one shape. You can make it bigger, rectangular, whatever, but it's always going to be a cube. It doesn't work for a cylindrical object. So that's a problem. Like I could still use a cube and do like, if I were printing it this way, I could be like, you know, cut the cube across this part and like this part is black and this part is gold, but I couldn't do it in sort of this cylindrical shape. So I thought, okay, you know what? Prusa Slicer, which is another slicer software like Cura, does have some of those features. And so I'm going to sorry, this one, pull the object into Prusa Slicer and try and do that natively there. Now, it's okay. It did a good job of slicing this stuff, but what I ran into is actually the Prusa Slicer had some issues with how it was handling the materials, and you can really kind of see that here. There's some blobbing that's happening on sort of this area of the object. I have some lines and stuff, and I really couldn't get that fine with the cuts. So I'll show you in a couple. There's some marring right here and some other sort of just weird artifacts that I got out of Prusa Slicer. It worked okay. It wasn't the best. I probably could have spent some time and tweaked my settings and got this relatively close to, you know, what I wanted, but it wasn't going to be convenient, and I don't think the end product was going to be great. So I decided to pull this object into Blender, and I was able to, in Blender, take this object and cut it into multiple pieces. So again, we have just sort of this singular object. And my initial approach was like, okay, I'm going to come into the wireframe, and then I'm going to select, you know, this part and this part and this part and this, you know, sort of went all the way around, selecting all of these individual nodes carefully and then separating those individual nodes from the inside. So you sort of had an outside and an inside section. Where that got weird was that once you did that separation, you have all these weird voids because they're just these points, and you're effectively just separating points. And so then the computer has to interpret, oh, you're a big hole and you're a big wall, and I had all these really weird like holes and stuff, and so it wouldn't print right. It was just an object that sort of resembled this thing and was split along these sort of vertices. So then I realized, you know, what I can do is I can use this thing, what's called a Boolean modifier, and that is just simply an if this thing touches this thing, either include or don't include it. And how I did that was I added a cylinder to this object, and then let's take this out of edit mode. there we go. So you can see there's my cylinder on this object. And I can come in here and on my original object, I can add this Boolean modifier. And then I tell it to look at this cylinder. And there you go. See, look at this. It's cutting it so that everything that is the difference means that everything that's touching this cylinder is removed. Intersect, that means that anything outside of that cylinder is removed. So I was able to do this sort of twice, create a duplicate item, cut for the outside, and then do another one and cut for the inside. And then I was able to create an inside part and an outside part. And then import those things into Cura. Excuse me. Cura. Yeah. And then in Cura, we have these two models that I just centered on the plate and then made sure that they were aligned. And then I told one to print with one extruder and one to print with the other extruder, in which we have some black PETG and some bronze silk PLA. And it took me a couple tries, but this cylindrical cut worked way better because I wasn't missing wall components as I was when I tried to do the split using the mesh tool. And the end result, by the way, looks a little bit something like this. So this is one half of the goggle, and you can see my, let's see, there we go. You can see my bronze looks nice and smooth. My black looks really great. This PETG came out really nice. And then all my lines look good. I'm not having any weird scarring. Right here I can kind of see that. That was on the bottom on this sort of hardware piece here. That something's going to be attached to that, so you won't even see that. But I mean, look at just the difference in quality between here's the Prusa slicer and here's the Keedy print. I even notice in the color of the bronze, I don't know if there's something up with the temperature or however this object, the Prusa slicer one, it's weird to me. Like the bronze looks shinier on this one than it does on this one. I don't know if that was a temperature difference or what, or extrusion speed, or I don't know, idea. But very cool. Learned a new skill in Blender that has some really cool applications, or excuse me, implications, because it means now that I know how to cut objects, I can take objects and cut other objects into objects that I want to modify, just and create parts for things that I want to print, you know, this part of and attach to that thing, etc., etc. Really looking forward to exploring that more, and super stoked to show you guys the end product of these goggles once I finish printing it.